Hey guys, Darren Kelly here, coach of Wide Street Boys, and welcome back to another captain's episode heading into round 10 and what a round it may be. By the looks of what my captains are saying here, I think we're in for a massive round of AFL fantasy because I can see a world where all of these top 10 of my captains here could go over 120. So I think there's going to be some massive scores in the fantasy community this weekend. So there could be a lot of movement with some really good fixtures, I must say, coming up this weekend. And that's sort of where I wanted to start this episode is the fact that looking at the fixture, it's something that I mentioned in my trade mode videos that it's probably going to, a lot of teams are going to get off to a slow start, particularly tonight. I personally don't have anyone in this game, so I'm not looking at anyone tonight. Same with a couple of these other ones. There's not a huge amount of movement going on for a lot of the early games, particularly for captains. A lot of the captain options are here. These final four games of the round. So you really got to be on the ball when it comes to your VC looping. Also, your other looping options as well. Obviously, I know a lot of people have particularly most of their team in these three particular matchups, if not four. I know I have 11 players on field for these final three games. So I'm sure there'll be plenty others because I don't have the likes of a Petrarca here. So that's just one example. Lockie Newell, if you're running that one. There's a few other options. Jack Steele, Philippou. There's a lot of options. Taranto. I'm just gonna stop there. So yeah, there's a lot of options there that a lot of people will be looking at. So you really got to be on the ball when it comes to Sunday, particularly if you're running like a late VC. Say you want to throw a VC on a Sheasel on the first game on Sunday, then you got to really be on the ball to say, okay, at 3/4 time, say he's on 100. Okay, are you taking that? He probably gets to 120, 130 ideally. You take that every day of the week. Okay, throw your VC loop and make sure you get that all sorted out before this game starts, because this game is probably going to start just after 3/4 time. Just after 3/4 time of this Richmond and North Melbourne game. So you got to really be on the ball on Sunday. So if you have any plans, play it safe. But if you're free and available, then I definitely would be worthwhile the risk, because again, a lot of my 9 of my top 10 captains are in these these 4 matchups. So yeah, we will see how we go. So I just wanted to mention that straight off the bat. So we'll get back to the challenge here. Just quickly reviewing how it went last week. It was pretty terrible. Dacos tagged 67 at number 1, shocking. McRae, number 75, number 5, bad. In the middle, okay, but no amazing scores at all. Last week was pretty tough, so not surprisingly, it was a tough week to be in there. So, what are we looking at this week? So, my number 1 captain this week is Harry Sheasel. I don't think that comes as too many surprises to most people. Obviously, the Richmond matchup is a very fruitful one. I think some people are getting a little bit of cold feet with him, particularly because there's been some news that he's been training as a bit of forward this week, even some midfield time. But I don't think either way. I think he's just going to demand the ball. He's just a ball accumulator, and he can get the ball wherever he goes, particularly in a nice matchup. I see this as a walk-up 120 for him. But realistically, if he's playing in that halfback role, which I still expect him to play on the weekend, that he has the potential of hitting a 140, 150. Now, his last 2 games against Richmond, which was both last year, he scored a 129 in a flat 100, so has a pretty good history against them as well. Obviously, very similar sort of role to what he played last year with the 129 and the 100. So, expecting a pretty good game from him. Yeah, what can I say realistically? It's just realistically, if you can throw the VC on him or not. I would say that we have seen some pretty decent scores off halfback off of Richmond, you know. So Nasai Wanganeen Malira, if I can ever say that name, 112, Kane Farrell 114, and etc. So there's so many other examples I could say, but yeah, he should go well. We know what Sheasel can do. He can easily average 120 off the halfback at the best of times, but in a matchup this friendly, it could go ballistic. So I think he has the best ceiling of the lot. That's the reason why I've gone with him at number 1. Number 2 is his teammate in Tristan Cherry, and I will say that Tristan Cherry is probably the safer option of the two because I believe his floor is probably a lot higher. I do think this is probably a walk-up 125, 130 realistically against the likes of Nankervis, who has been struggling a little bit in coming last couple of weeks. So Tristan Cherry has been going at like 120 in the last 4 weeks, and that hasn't been particularly easy matchups either. So now that it's opened up to an easier one, I'm definitely expecting a bit of a ceiling score from him. It's just really what that score is going to be. So uh, I don't know if I see a 150 in his realm at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that. He did go 150 against him last year in that brutal game where he went on three 150s in a row. So he's definitely got that in the caliber, but I don't think we've seen that side of him just yet. I think the highest score he's had so far this season is a 129. So we'll have to see a big jump from him to get up to that height. So we'll have to wait and see. But here's my number 2. Again, should be a walk up 125, 130. So very easy matchup. Some big scores against the likes of Nankervis have been Rowan Marshall with a 123, Tom de Koning with a 132, and Maxi Gorn with a 138 there. So 3 big names there, all have gone big. So expecting Tristan Cherry to be amongst those group very quickly. So easy should be 130 in my opinion. Number 3, I have gone with the likes of Josh Dunkley. Now, probably a little bit speculative because he is only 14% selected at the moment, so a little bit ways down. But his record against Melbourne last year was insane, and that was back when they weren't as easy as a matchup as they have been this season. So he went a 123 and a 158 against them last year. Particularly that 158 was at the Gabba as well, where he hit the triple double. So he loves to play Melbourne, and he just gets it done all the time. Obviously, Melbourne have given up some plenty of points to midfielders in the past. Some pretty big names, Zach Merritt, Bailey Smith, Noah Anderson, and Matt Rowell as well. So I'm expecting a pretty easy going game for him. Should be a walk-up 120 for him. Also, he's super consistent. He's only dropped below 100 twice so far this season, so he's a super safe captain option in an easy matchup. So I definitely don't mind him there. At number 3. Number 4, I'm giving this man some respect, and that is Bailey Smith. He hasn't featured in my top 5 captains for majority of the season so far, so I could break him here, but he sneaks in at number 4. He would be higher if he didn't have such a tough matchup against Port Adelaide, but we saw what he was able to do last week against the third hardest matchup in the GWS Giants. Port Adelaide are the second hardest matchup so far this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if Bailey Smith continues on that trend and just goes ham. So he's there, number 4. Again, he's just traveling so well, averaging 119 so far this season, so he should just continue on that track. And yeah, you can probably go with the early VC on him quite easily because he does play early on in the game. He's the only one that plays before those final 4 games. He plays the 4th game in the round there. So love him as an option. He should continue on his way. Number 5, I have gone with Dane Zorko. Now, obviously, against Melbourne have been a very good matchup for designated kick-out players. Lockie Whitfield's got 111, Caleb Daniels gone 114, John Noble's even gone 117, Zach Guthrie went up with a massive 149, and also Nick Martin, if you count him as a halfback. If not, he's there or there. I think he played for that particular game. He played halfback, but he went on 121 as well. So great scores off halfback. We've seen him over the last month just go back to his old selves and really finding that form again. So expecting a pretty good game from him as well. So that is my top 5. Just expanding on Zorko as well, he went 117 and 118 against them last year, so loves a bit of a score from them, so should hit that same sort of range with a 120-ish score. So there is that. Now continuing on for my next 5, I've got Rowan Marshall at 6. Against West Coast Eagles, it will be more interesting to see if they still run the dual ruck setup at West Coast. Obviously, it would be a bit more of a friendly matchup if it was just Matt Flynn, but even still with the double, he should easily be a 110, 120 sort of ruckman. And just speaking of ruckman, my top 10 is just dominated of ruckman this week. I've got 4 ruckman in the top 10, so shows you that no matter what ruck setup you're sort of running, I think we're all going to be fairly happy with our rucks by the end of the week. So expecting some big scores there. So Rowan Marshall's there at number 6. He's gone 118 and 96 against West Coast last year. So not the biggest scores, but I think they've only gotten easier since then. We've obviously seen the likes of Lloyd Meek and Max Squall go massive 131 and a 158 recently against them. So anyone that's looking to trade out a TDK, which I will expand on a little bit after this video, is that yeah, Marshall's a very good trade-in option this week and should give you that pop score that you're looking for. And should be a good run home. So yeah, definitely love him there. Max Gorn does file in at number 7. Now, he may shoot up the rankings a little bit more, particularly if the likes of Oscar McInerney doesn't get up for the game. There are whispers and rumours that Oscar McInerney is struggling a little bit with a bit of an injury. That's why Darcy Fort has come in and managed the load a fair bit. So if there's any chance that Oscar McInerney just misses the game entirely, Max Gorn could be my number 1 quite simply. So yeah, stay tuned for that. If that does happen, then yeah, I'll probably post it in my comment section here. So come back to this video if that does come true later on tonight, if not later on the week. But yeah, he went a 149 against Oscar McInerney earlier on last season, and then obviously dropped to 77 when he was a bit injured later on in the season. So 2 very different scores there, but obviously I'm more inclined to believe the 149. Just because we obviously knew he was a fairly bit injured in that 77 game. So, yeah, Max Gorn's obviously just flying at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit another high score. Tim English slots in just behind him at number 8. Now, he is up against the likes of Goldstein. Now, Goldstein has given up some very good very good scores against the likes of Brody Grundy and Tristan Cherry in the last 2 weeks. Both went over 115. I think Tristan Cherry went 121. So I'm expecting Tim English to have another pretty good game here and have a 120-ish sort of score. Just because, yeah, he would just get the job done around the ground over Goldstein. So I don't think there's any chance in hell that Goldstein is going to keep up with Tim English. He's one of the most mobile ruckmen out there in the competition. So yeah, good luck to Goldstein trying to keep up with him all day. So definitely could expect him to have a even bigger score than what the other 2 were having. Number 9, Bontempelli slotted in there at number 9. Now, he should probably be a bit higher just with the matchup, but he only had a 53 against them last year. This was early on in the season when Bontempelli wasn't really particularly having a great time, but we haven't seen a huge amount of scores from Essendon so far. You know, the likes of Tom Powell at 110, Nick Dacos 120, and Jordan Dawson went 134 early on in the season. So only 3 biggest scores there at the moment, but we know Western Bulldogs are such a friendly fantasy team, and obviously Essendon are slowly starting to open up a little bit more as we get later on in the season. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Bontempelli have 30 plus disposals and a couple goals and hits a 130. So he's also a very good option if you're trading him in. If it suits your buy structure, of course, I'll mention that. So yeah, also another really good option there. Then to finish it off, I have just slotted in with the likes of Jack McRae. I don't know why I keep trusting this man, but I just feel like he's due for a good week every single week, and he has a massive ceiling. So there's no harm in throwing him at number 10 there. Just with such an easy matchup against West Coast Eagles. They love to give up plenty of points to midfielders. So yeah, I'm expecting a pretty good one there for him. So that's my top 10. Drop any one that you think I may have missed. I know Lockie Whitfield is pretty highly selected so far this season. I'm not as confident. We know I just feel like there's a potential tag coming his way, so I'm not super keen on it at the stage. But I also haven't been super hot on him all season, so I wouldn't take that into account too much. But yeah, that's my top 5 and that's my top 10 done. Now, before I finish this video, I did want to speak a little bit on the fact that Tom de Koning has been named out. It has been confirmed now. So I wanted to give this a little bit of discussion that Obviously, I believe he is a trade out target, so he has to be traded out, in my opinion. You were probably going to jump off him in, say, 2 weeks' time anyway when it came to the buyer. So I think he needs to go this week. Now, the options I guess we need to go through is who are you going to? Obviously, you got the likes of Gorn. I think he's far too expensive. I don't think you want to pay out for that anymore. Now that he has a pretty tougher run, I know it's not this week, depends on what happens, but that's typically not a good matchup, but it definitely could be. Brody Grundy is just a flat neutral matchup. I think Brody Grundy will probably get up for this game though, just because obviously they used to be teammates and things didn't plan out the way they wanted to. Rowan Marshall slowly becoming into a bit of form, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a tougher matchup. Darcy Cameron, again, just another flat matchup, so nothing amazing. So the run isn't there to really justify the fact that he is priced at 120, and I don't think you're paying up for that unless you absolutely think he's going to go ballistic. Because the run from now until later on in the season is pretty tough, particularly these three after the bye, very tough. So I probably wouldn't be worth it, in my opinion, to trade in a guy that's priced at 120 to go for this run and then potentially look at trading him out after that. I'd rather jump on the cheaper guy who is nearly 300k cheaper, which is just ridiculous to think, and that is Rowan Marshall at 921k. Got to get the pop score this week against the likes of West Coast Eagles. Like I said, it should hopefully be about a 120 score, and it's definitely a captain option if you want to look at that. A low break even of 40 at 84, so he'll probably rise up in cash a fair bit, probably 30-40k, and looking like he's turning his form around after a pretty poor start to the season. So expecting a ceiling from him. His run, we'll say though, isn't amazing. Looking at his next three particularly, he's got Wits and then Max Gorn straight back to back after in round 11 and 12. So in terms of his next three average, it could be quite a little bit lower than what you expect. It could just be the flat 100 rather than this 115 that you're probably expecting from him. But then you got to look at, when you're picking these sort of players, you're probably looking at holding him for the remainder of the season. So you got to look at the full fixture for the remainder of the season. And from what I can tell and what it looks like, he looks like he has a fairly decent run to finish off the season. So I'd be backing him in at that much cheaper price for the remainder of the season just to go big and try and get his average back up to that 117 that he started the season with. I don't think it's that outside the realm of possibility that he could get close to that. Maybe not exactly, but he could definitely probably push 115 by season's end. So I'd probably definitely go there. It's only costing you roughly 20k, so that's such an easy sideways trade to make. It's really just what you can do on the other end of that. I know a few other people have the likes of a Clayton Oliver that they're jumping off of. While he's not a forced trade, it is definitely a huge trade out target in the sex grand scheme of things, and maybe you can make that work with even if you don't have any cash in the bank, you can easily go and Oliver down to one of those mid-priced options in a Steel. No, that's not. Is that not? No, he's not. I don't think Steele's a downgrade option. A Peatling, for example, a Bergman's even cheaper than that. Those sort of guys, they're all super cheap at the moment. So yeah, I'd be doing those sort of things. A couple other options you could potentially look at. Tim English is someone that we have to talk about. His run in the next 5 weeks is pretty elite. So Essendon, Geelong, Hawthorn, St Kilda, Richmond in the next 6 weeks, obviously including the bye there. But you just got to be aware of that bye, obviously round 12. If you're already running the likes of a Tristan Cherry, then you're going to be having no bye for that, and no ruckman for that round at all, which means you're down to only 20 players in that round on field. So that could really hurt you, particularly if you're not super keen on who your rookies that you're probably going to be running in the remainder of your remainder of your squad. Most people are pretty heavy there, so yeah, I'd just be very careful, and I don't think that's a possibility. I think you really should spread out your ruckman. So if I had the choice between a Marshall and a Tim English, I'd definitely go with a Marshall. Save that 150k, and yeah, you'd be better off throughout the buys as well, even though you're probably not going to get the points on field at the moment. So that's just my opinion there. But yeah, if you're not running a Tristan Cherry, then Tim English is definitely an option. But that leads me to Tristan Cherry. That he's probably, again, my number one pick if you can get up to him. He's still cheap enough that he's achievable, but he's gonna be start to be out of reach very shortly. He went up the likes of 36k last week. He's probably looking at something very similar this week. So he's going to be priced around that $1.1 million very quickly, and it's going to start to become unreachable. And I think obviously the one thing I've sort of spoken about previously is that his run to finish off the season is something we have not seen previously. It is pretty elite. He only comes up against what, 3 tough matchups for the remainder of the season. A really good green mile. So yeah, he I don't see him coming down in price unless there's some underlying injury he has. In that case, you'd never jump on him anyway. So you're either grabbing him now or probably just having to pay up for him later on the season at some stage and just having to fork out that cash. So if you can jump on him now, that's the way I'd be going. But obviously, understanding that you may not have the cash to do that. He is about 140k above the likes of TDK. So you'd have to really make that money work for you. Like I said, if you have an Oliver, that's an easy downgrade to a Peatling. That probably gives you enough cash to go up to the likes of Tristan Cherry. Just want to quickly look at those prices. I don't even know what Oliver's worth anymore. Oliver's about 800. Maybe not then, because Peatling's about 800 himself. So you're only gaining 80k there. So you need a little bit of money in the bank to do that. But 60k isn't a huge amount in the bank. So you just have to find a way to do it. Because, yeah, I think that's just the way I'd go about it. But if you can't, Rowan Marshall's a safe fallback option for you. A couple other options that I've looked at. Obviously, Darcy Cameron's been going very under the radar so far this season. Just quietly ticking about that 108 average so far this season. Just been super consistent as a 100 average player. Only dropped below 100 twice so far this season. Surprisingly against the likes of Sweet and Oscar McInerney, who obviously is a pretty tough matchup. So he does come up against Riley O'Brien, though, this week, who has been a very tough matchup. He's red on the scale. Then, obviously, Tristan Cherry, Lloyd Meek, and then Max Gorn. So his run particularly is not great. So I can show you that probably better here. It's pretty bad until the buy. So that's probably, again, not an area I'd look in, not at the price range that he is at. So we'll move on to that one. Probably not looking at Nankervis. I think he's a bit underdone at the moment. Wits, same as that. He's got his a backup ruckman in his side this week. So again, not looking there. And really, you're starting to come into a little bit of a sketchy zone because, Jackson's another option that I explored. But with Sean Darcy potentially back in this week being a test, then yeah. If Sean Darcy was out for, say, a month, then lock and load, you can go Jackson for a month. But unfortunately, it looks like Sean Darcy is going to be back this week, if not next week. So I don't think it's an option you can look at. Riley O'Brien has surprisingly been okay so far in the last sort of month. Only dropped the low 60 last week against TDK, but besides that, has been pretty much averaging in the sides of 100. But again, very risky areas. I probably wouldn't go there. Realistically, the only other option you could look at is maybe a Visentini if you really wanted to go down to a cheaper option. Now, obviously, he played up against the likes of Riley O'Brien last week. Very tough matchup. Probably got the better of him in terms of a hit-out battle and around the ground. But I'm expecting with a decent run, the Cats are a much easier matchup. Green on the scale. I'm probably expecting a 70 or an 80 from Visentini, and could be a very viable cash generation option for you. You will probably lose a fair bit of points on field, but fingers crossed you can make the upgrade on the other side of that trade to make that work and make that those points that you're losing in this trade viable in another trade as well. So is another option I've looked at, but it is definitely for the risky and the faint of heart. So, but realistically, there's no other options that you could look at there. So realistically, I think it's Marshall as an easy sideways. If you can get up to Tristan Cherry, then that's what I do. That's my preference. But if you're really struggling, yeah, I do everything I can to get to Rowan Marshall. So that's probably about where I'll leave it. What are my captain options? I did forget to mention that. So I'm probably going to go with the likes of Sheasel as my VC. Obviously, I'll change this around when my trades are fully locked out in a couple of hours' time. And then I'll probably run into Josh Dunkley against Melbourne in that game. a couple of hours later. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe, do all those great things. Besides that, have a great weekend. Hopefully your fantasy team goes well, and I'll catch you guys in next week's video. All the best, guys. Cheers.